Hear
myself.
you.
Yes, you can. Okay. I am the only one who is unmuted at this point, so you can hear me. Okay. All right. Sean, you can unmute yourself.
Done.
Perfect. And we are going to get started.
Hi,
So,
everyone.
well, hold on, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. Hi. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Scholar in Residence program at Temple Bat Kodesh. And to the magic of Zoom and the internet, we bring in scholars from all over. I don't know if you've ever been called a scholar, but anybody that we think can educate us and share some of their life story with us, we like to bring in. And we're very grateful that you've taken the time out to join with us today. As you know, we've spoken a little bit. I'm obsessed with Parade. I've sermonized about it. I talk about it. There's at least
Me
one or
too.
two. Yes. There's at least, just so you know who's here, there's at least two people who've seen it. One of whom is a young lady who was sitting next to me at Parade, and we've become friendly. And I invited her to here. She's from Massachusetts, and one of your producers is here too, who I know, who actually Robin Newman.
Oh, yes. Wonderful.
Robin's here too. So we have a very nice crowd. I'm sure more people come in. So hi, Robin.
Quick hi. How are you? Good to see you, Sean, and good
You
to
too.
see you, my rabbi.
You too, Robin. Okay, so I was thinking if you don't mind starting, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Well, you're right. I've never been called a scholar before. I guess I have been doing this a very long time. So I suppose in some twisted way of looking at it, you could call me a scholar of theater. But yeah, I've been a professional actor for over 30 years, and over the course of that time, I started in theater, and I've done a lot of very different shows over the years, and have also done on-camera works. I've done some TV and film, and don't really know what else to tell you about myself except that I started doing this. I studied it in college. I went to college at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan, and studied acting, and started working professionally right away, and have been doing it ever since. And it's sort of my passion and always has been. And I feel very, very fortunate that I get to do it, and become familiar and get to know stories like Leo Franks, and get to play amazing men like John Slayton.
Absolutely great. I have a list of questions, so we'll go through there. And why don't you tell us maybe about the process, how you got the role and what that's about? Like, we have a lot of Broadway fans in general here, so it's good. Tell us a little bit about.
Well, it's always different how you get cast in a show. I went through the show I did right before this, which was also right before the pandemic, was Jagged Little Pill. And that process was very different. I auditioned for that. It got down to about, well, it was originally, they looked at about four of us, and then it was between two of us, and then I ended up getting it, which was great and amazing. And it was a beautiful show, and I was very proud to be a part of it. And best I can figure, what happened was that show, I was very honored to be nominated for a Tony Award. And when that happens in this business, I think what happens is people come to you with offers, and with they just come to you and ask you to do something. So Parade was dropped into my lap very unexpectedly, and I was not familiar with the show at all. And I read it and just immediately fell in love with it, and especially fell in love with the fact that this character, they specifically had asked me to play John Slayton, and in Act One, just like I think anybody who watches the show, as I was reading it, I was thinking, oh no, I just don't really want to play another, middle-aged, white guy who does the wrong thing, who's just a jerk. I've done that, and I do realize the value in a villain in a piece, and especially if the villain ultimately gets their comeuppance, then I am totally willing to play that. But I've done it a lot, and I just wasn't really. I was thinking, oh no, I don't want to do that, and then I kept reading, and I was so delightfully surprised, especially to know that this was based on actual historic events, to see that Slayton stepped up and did the right thing. And I immediately was like, yes, absolutely, I will do that. That is fantastic and thrilling to me. And so I joined the cast at City Center last November. We did a 1-week presentation of it at the City Center, and that production ultimately transferred to Broadway this year.
Mhm. When you got the role and you learned about the story, I think you had told me also you did a little research on Governor Slayton.
I sure did.
You want to share with us what you learned? First of all, from the show itself, what he did, because they don't remember what I say. So I've given 2 sermons about it. So they have no idea what the story's about. So don't worry. So maybe they'll listen to you and remember about his story and his role in the show and in real life.
Yeah, there is a pretty stark difference in the way that he's presented in the show and what actually historically happened. And it's sort of, I believe, I've never actually spoken to Alfred Urey and Jason Robert Brown, who are the writers of the show, about this. Unfortunately, never really had the chance to sit down with them and ask them. But I would assume that the reasoning behind that, it's sort of dramatized basically for Parade, as most things are. Parade is based on a true story. There's a lot of license taken with the story. There are a lot of sort of, I believe, I would say, fictionalized scenes based on what we know about the people involved. And Slayton's journey is dramatized in a way that he's very conflicted in the beginning. He is presented basically, once Leo Frank was incarcerated, he was they appealed to the governor to commute his sentence, because that was at the time their only choice to save his life. And that is actually based in truth. That is historical truth. Trying to collect my thoughts here and explaining the difference in the what happened historically was that the Judge Roan, appealed to Governor Slayton and said, I believe this was a mistrial. I believe that I pronounced the wrong sentence. I thought I was doing the correct thing. However, I believe I've made a grave mistake. You are now the only person that can save this man's life, who I believe is innocent. And at that point, Governor Slayton re-examined the evidence, and there was no hesitation at all. Everything that I've read on his part, he was just immediately like, you are correct. This was a mistrial. This man clearly did not commit this crime. And his only choice at that point was to commute the sentence. He could not pardon him. He could not free him. The only way to save his life was to commute the sentence. And that was his only sort of legal power at that point. By the way, Slayton was also a lawyer. He continued to practice law throughout his entire life. in the play, he's much more, it's actually Lucille that comes to him, Leo's wife, and appeals to him to reopen the case, or not reopen the case, but to reexamine the evidence. And Slayton sort of appears to be very conflicted about his decision to even re-examine it, much less actually take the step of commuting the sentence, which would clearly have been political suicide. And it was. He was immediately, not only was he ousted from as governor, but he never served in office again in any political position. And he knew that would be the case, certainly in Georgia. But the stakes were also much, much higher. I mean, it was a very dangerous position. Historically, what actually happened was a mob of 5,000 people stormed the governor's mansion. It was basically an insurrection. They were trying to kill Slayton and Sally, and they had to call in the Georgia militia and to get them out alive, and they were unable to return to Atlanta for 10 years.
Mhm. Yeah, it is a real character. There is tragedy on so many levels, and as I said in my sermon, he's somebody who was a profile in courage, who stood up to do the right thing. And I want to thank you for that portrayal of him. One of the other things is that I believe you actually went to Atlanta or Marietta, the site, and what was that like? I mean, especially knowing you're so involved in the story.
It was very moving. I mean, we were in Atlanta proper, so the first stop was we went to Slayton's marker, which is sort of over in the area of Atlanta where he lived, where he and Sally lived. And that was just moving to me because just that over time there was a faction of people, and the fact that the state, the people of Georgia, the people of Atlanta over time did sort of realize what an amazing thing he had done, and honored him for it with this marker, basically stating that he commuted Leo Frank's sentence and saved his life, or at least tried to. And then we went to the site of the lynching, and I don't know how to describe it. It's very sobering to know that something so horrible happened ever. And I know, God, unfortunately, that lynchings have happened all over the South, but we had just closed the City Center production, and I was very, as I clearly immersed in the story of Leo Frank, and it's just so moving and horrible to me that this poor man was just going about his life, and someone decided to point a finger at him, and then 2.5 years later, he after spending 2 years in prison, his life was taken away from him and from all the people who loved him, and it just breaks my heart over and over again. And so to be there on the site, and especially there's something now, everything is grown up around it, and there's like a Mexican restaurant right next to it, and an expressway going by over here, and it's unfortunately a very sort of you would never know it was there if you weren't looking for it. It's not a very remarkable site. However, it is lovely that they have taken the pains to mark it and to say that this happened. And it is a little tiny, lovely little park in the middle of all of this insanity that's going on. So there is that. If you just sort of isolate yourself to, this tiny little green spot of land that's in the middle of all of this kind of just commercial nonsense.
I put it up behind me.
Yes, yeah, that's the expressway over there. That's the wall of the expressway, and then, but there are lovely little plaques and around, and it was I can't really describe it except that it was just intense. It's heartbreaking. All these years later, it still is to me.
And the show certainly brings it to life to a new audience and a new generation. I know, some other questions I have. The first night of previews, there were some neo-Nazi protesters outside the theater. What was the reaction for you, the other actors?
Well, my reaction was all over the place. Like, it was all over the map, really. I wasn't surprised because I knew the show was going to be that kind of a show. I knew from my research that there are people out there that still vehemently believe that Leo Frank did commit this murder and that he was a pedophile and he was a rapist and all of these things. But in the same breath, then I look at what these it was like 10 people, just 10 horrible, ugly people who decided to come and ruin a really wonderful night, and just spouting nonsense, just spouting hatred and bile. And I don't mean to belittle it, because I know it matters. Of course it matters. But I just kept looking at them and listening to them and thinking, it's so silly what you're doing. Like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's ignorant. It's based in nothing but your fear and your ignorance. And what really struck me was that to them, their slurs that they were saying was, you're going to see a show about a pedophile and a rapist and a Jew. Those were their three slurs that they decided to use. And I was just like, you have no idea. You have no idea. Your words are so hateful and ignorant. And they were there, and they were also just they were cowards about it as well, because they stayed about 20 minutes and the police came, and they didn't even stay until the curtain went up. So and they never came back. Thank God.
They got their 15 minutes of fame and upset people, and that's what they want to do too.
Yeah, and that's what they want to do. And that was the other thing, was that I didn't want to give them that attention, because I know that's what they ultimately want. But it also ultimately gave the show a lot of press, and a lot of people came to see it in support of the show. So thanks.
I think I already had I think we got our tickets before that happened. We knew about it, so we knew we were going to come up in June.
Oh, I'm just reading this from Robin. Wow, I didn't know they were trying to recruit people. That's horrible.
Yeah, well, that's what they do. At the and maybe we can tie all this together. At the end of the show, when Leo Frank is lynched and it's dramatized on this stage, and the last thing he does is he recites the Shema, the Jewish prayer people we say before we die, and it's a very moving moment at that show. What's it like, seeing it every night? And one of the questions I had, because I mentioned that somebody I met at the show was there, and I spoke up to her about it. What's the audience reaction, throughout the course of the show, afterwards? Any feedback you've gotten? Some things that you might have noticed?
Well, first of all, to watch it every night was I'm not going to lie, it wasn't easy. It was my least favorite part of the show. because Michael Arden, our director, very brilliantly, much of the show we bore witness as the acting company. We were on stage for most of the show and saw most of the story play out, and including the lynching. And I just would always have to steel myself before I went out. I think just in general, it was a difficult thing to watch. Playing the role I was playing, it was a very difficult thing to watch, because if I stay in Slayton land and his mind and his soul, well, there's a lot going on. There's so much at stake. You know, he clearly knew this man was innocent, and it's not easy to watch an innocent man be murdered in broad daylight, and also to know that your actions didn't help. I mean, I couldn't help sometimes feeling like I failed when I was playing Slayton. I had to really struggle with the idea of going home every night. I had to struggle with letting go of this feeling of, it's one of the most difficult things about the show for me, was that I would go home with a sense of really grave failure, because I didn't save him. Ultimately, I had to come around to like, well, I can't really do that to myself. I have to at least know that he tried, and that is something that no one else did, you know. And I was very proud to play that person that did step up, knowing that he would, everything could possibly be taken away from him, including his life, and his wife's life, and his home, and his career, and you know, so it was difficult. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It was a really, really powerful moment in theater. And then on the flip side of that, I as an actor, as a performer, as someone who is very proud of the fact that we brought this story to so many hundreds of thousands of people, I'm very, very proud. And I'm very proud to have been part of something so powerful, even if it was as difficult as that to watch. It's important that we watch it so that it will hopefully knock sense into someone who will never, you know, we can never let this happen again. That's what I think the power of theater can be, is it can change people's minds and their hearts. And that's the hope anyway. And that's what I sense from the audience, to answer your other question. I honestly don't remember. I've been doing theater a long time, and I don't remember an audience being as rapt as the audience was in Parade. I mean, it was, you could hear a pin drop through the entire show. So now when there's silence, it's difficult to know exactly what everyone's thinking, but I do know that that is very rare, because there was no crinkling of cellophane. There was none of that. You know, it was just, it felt like the entire audience was just leaning forward, like, oh my God, what is going to happen? And that's really rare. It's really special. And I think it's a beautifully written piece, and clearly it was a beautiful production of a beautifully written piece. And I think people were just, you know, on the edges of their seats.
Yeah,
and then when I would talk to people after, very often just tears, and so moved, and it was amazing to be a part of that. It really was.
I noticed that you know, there are a couple of kind of, let's call it, humorous moments, humorous lines here or there, and you know, some of the audience, we got kind of this nervous laughter. Yeah, it's funny, but I shouldn't be laughing because it's really not funny, but it is funny. Like, I didn't know you could be both a Southerner and a Jew. There's some of these little funny, you know, funny comments.
Right.
It's like, I shouldn't laugh. I shouldn't laugh. It's too serious. But you're right. They just, you just
right. Well, and you have to have the levity. I mean, it's such a difficult story to watch. So Alfred very, very smartly, as a Southern Jew himself, put a lot of levity in the show, or at least little tidbits to kind of help you through as an audience. Yeah, thank God.
It helped. Another question. I understand that sometimes before the show, some of the cast would get together and recite the Kaddish, the Jewish prayer. How did that start, and what brought that on? And
I don't really know the answer to that, but I do know that it began at City Center, because I remember our Jewish cast members standing in a circle and praying together at City Center, and I was so moved by that, and I do believe they kept doing that throughout the run of the show.
Is there two more questions, actually one real question about the show. Is there one thing that stands out for you that you'd like to leave us with about the show, those who haven't seen it or might never get a chance to see it, that you'd like to share?
Oh my goodness. I mean, the thing that I think is most remarkable about the show is that, I mean, who would have ever thought that a musical about something so horrible could be so beautiful and so entertaining? So anyone who hasn't seen it, I guess I would just say, I know, it sounds like it would be a horrible idea for a musical, but it is really one of my favorite musicals I've certainly ever been a part of. And I know for a fact it is so many people's favorite musical, or at least it's in the top 3. And, I mean, it really is a stunning achievement, because it's so ugly, and it's such a difficult story to tell. And somehow they managed to create something that it's really riveting to watch, and not just riveting, like you said, every now and then it's funny. And Jason's music just soars at times, and there is the show is filled with, it isn't blatant, it isn't shoved in your face, but the show is filled with tiny little things. It sneaks up on you. The show is filled with moments of great shining hope that all of this could change, that Leo might be freed, but most importantly, that all of this could change. And I do believe that Slayton was a part of that sort of like underlying sense of hope that the audience left with, that there was one man, and he didn't look like someone that would do it. He didn't, he was a very sort of unexpected ally, I guess. And I think that there is great hope in that even in 1913, there was this man that stood up to all of it and said, no, this is wrong. And
it also touches on not just the anti-Semitism, but all other issues of racism and bigotry. There's other parts of the show that talk about that, and certainly the closing scene. Also, we're still back in the old red hills of Georgia.
Yep, you're right. And it would be really incorrect to wrap it up in a pretty bow, of course. So you can't really do that, but it is amazing to know that Lucille stayed in Atlanta for the rest of her life. And, she wasn't chased out. She decided to stay. And look at us behind you. I love that. Oh, and behind Andrea too. I didn't notice that. That's Paul. I love that.
We're trying to imitate the show, and you know how they always put stuff up in the background, so we're doing the same.
I love it. It's a slide. My favorite slide, by the way, is that slide that would go up during the commutation speech that I had, where just a big giant headline: Slayton saves Leo Frank. That just made me so happy.
I couldn't find that on Google.
I couldn't either, but I ended up getting it because I bugged our stage management relentlessly and they bugged the projection designer, Sven. And so he sent me a copy of it. I was so grateful.
Before we are going to open up to questions from our congregants, if you don't mind, and if you don't want to, that's fine. I certainly read that the People article about you and Harry,
Yes.
and I was thinking about it, not to pry, but as you know, we're coming up to the high holidays, Jewish Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And one of the reasons I wanted to hopefully get you here before that is not only the Leo Frank story, but also your personal story regarding that, because it's a nice message for everybody about how to deal with the ups and downs of life and how to move on with life. And these are themes that we talk about coming up. So if you don't mind sharing.
I wouldn't at all. Yeah, so my husband Harry and I met at a very difficult time in our lives. We had both lost our partners, our long-term partners. Harry had been with his partner Scott for about 14 years, and I had been with my partner Guy for 13. And this was about 13 years ago now. And they both passed away. Scott passed away at the end of 2009, and my guy, passed away in 2010. He had colon cancer. He was very young. He was 41. And it was very unexpected and out of the blue. And needless to say, it was earth-shattering, and just, I felt like I felt like everything, like it was just over. Everything was just over. And but my guy and Harry had been very good friends. And so I met Harry through Guy, and his partner Scott passed away about 10 months before Guy did. And so, to try to make the story a little bit shorter, ultimately what happened was they bonded at a very crucial time in their lives, Harry and Guy, because Harry had just lost his partner Scott, and Guy had just been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer out of the blue. And so I think Guy was very eager to discuss death, and Harry was too. And it isn't an easy thing to discuss. And understandably, I think human beings, don't feel comfortable always bringing it up. And especially if you're someone who's just lost someone, they say, are you okay to talk about this? And I wasn't ready at the time to really talk about the possibility of losing Guy, but he was, and I think he knew that he wasn't going to make it. So basically, what happened was, over the course of their very strong friendship forming, I also then formed a friendship with Harry, because he meant so much to Guy. And then Guy passed away. And then Harry and I started talking every day, because Harry was about 10 months ahead of me in the process of having just lost, a long-term partner. And so we talked on the phone. He was in New York at the time, and I had moved Guy back to Chicago to be closer to his family. So we were talking on the phone every day, and we just got close. And about a year later, we kind of realized, well, maybe this is a thing. What do you think? Like, should we give this a shot? And here we are 13 years later, and it truly is. That was literally the shortest, most succinct version of that story I think maybe I've ever told. But it really was. We met at it's a very, it's not a young love story. It isn't like, oh, we were in our 20s and everything was perfect, and it was a different kind of love story. It was finding love again, and I didn't even know that was possible, honestly. And a sort of really strong love and a really strong bond formed out of the ashes of so much loss. And I was very fortunate that Guy and I, over the course of, he was sick for about 15 months. One of the things I realized, that I was very fortunate that I got to talk to him about it. when it became clear that he was going to die, it wasn't easy to talk about, but we did. We talked about, I remember just asking him, how can I do that? I don't know how to do that, to keep living without you. So it was amazing that I got to ask him what he would do. What would you do? And he made me promise that no matter what, he said, I know it's going to get very, very dark, and that there are going to be times where you don't want to keep living, but just promise me that you will always choose life. And I said, okay. And he was like, promise me. We're like, okay, all right, I will. And it was very smart of him, because there were many, many times where I was like, no, this is I'm out. And then I remembered making that promise, and I thought, okay, that was very clever of him, because here I am.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I am.
Absolutely.
It still hurts. It's still very acute. But to me, that's how much I loved him. That's how much I still love him. That pain is, unfortunately, that's how I feel my love. And that loss is how much I cared for him. And so I'm grateful for that, because if it wasn't there anymore, I'd be like, oh, well, I guess.
Exactly.
So it was the most formative experience of my life. And I went through it with Harry, and here we are. And I think it makes us grateful for every moment that we have to this day.
And now I have to rewrite my Yisker sermon for next week. And just for everybody who doesn't know, Harry was also in Parade.
Yes.
Right. And he was your understudy.
Yes.
Okay.
He understudied me and Dorsey and two other roles. And then toward the end of the run, we actually lost one of the swings. So they came to Harry, because Harry was kind of rocking the swing gig. He had never done it before. It's not really something it's not really in his wheelhouse, but he's a Virgo. So it turns out, he's a rules follower, and everything has its very specific way of being done. And so it turns out swinging is basically when you cover multiple roles in a show. Sorry, I'm using theater speak. So he had to cover 4 roles in the beginning, and then by the time we closed, he covered 7. And went on more than any other of the other swings. He went on 32 times.
Very good. Okay. Thank you for everything you've shared. And before we conclude, if anybody has any questions, raise your hand and I will call on you and bring you up on the screen. And then you can, Ruth. Oh.
Hello. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Ruth.
I saw Parade in end of July, and your role in that play really touched me. It was amazing, that speech you gave, that I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to let another Jew die. You could hear from my voice that how touched I was, how you brought such a tremendous energy and righteousness to that role. And it's much appreciated. And I must tell you, I love the music. The musical part of it I hadn't expected that. And that was a joy also. So nice to see you, the human side of you. And by the way, your personal story just touched me a lot also, just that. When you said choose life, that's such a Jewish concept. That's extraordinary to me. I don't know if you know that, but anyway, thank you for letting me speak.
I love that.
Okay, I'll send you my sermon on that I just gave that they don't remember.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you,
Ruth.
Yeah, that speech really, it moved me every night. There were times I could barely get through it, because when I would be, we were talking about the lynching earlier. Sometimes I would see clearly what was in front of me, which is Ben Platt playing Leo Frank about to be lynched. And then sometimes I'm going to get really emotional thinking about it, but sometimes I'd see Matthew Shepard tied to a fence. I'd see every Jew that lost their lives in the Holocaust. I'd see, anybody who's marginalized and persecuted for being less than or other. And so when I would say, if today another Jew went to his grave because I failed to do my duty, I would all my life find his blood on my hands. That was like a really powerful line to me, and I wanted it. So it really means a lot to me, Ruth, that you said that, because I wanted it to be powerful. I wanted people to understand how much it meant to this man, that, it means if we can just save one life, that's a life, and that's important, and it's special, and it's beautiful. So I just, I felt like, I really feel like the stakes really couldn't have been higher for him at that moment. So it was one of those moments as an actor that you can go there, and you should. It's important that you do. And so thank you.
It reminds me of another Jewish concept that if you save one life, it's as if you save the entire world.
Yeah.
So, we try.
That's beautiful.
Thank you, Ruth. Does anybody else remember,
Harry.
raise your hand so I can call on you.
Up.
Oh, so you've said it all. Well,
Judy.
Izzy. Okay, I'll
My
do it.
hand's up.
I don't
Judy.
see- hold on. I didn't see Gary.
Yeah.
Okay, Izzy.
Hi.
Hey. Uh-oh, you're muted.
It's-
Okay.
is
I
he-
unmuted. I don't know what happened. It's funny because I was going to New York for my anniversary, and I said to the rabbi, tell me about the show. I want to see it. And he said, I'm sorry, it's closing. And I was so
Oh, no.
disappointed because he so raved about the show, how it was incredible. And I couldn't wait to see it. And you guys left. But one of your producers just said that hopefully it will go on tour, and we will get our chance to see it. I actually have two questions. My first question is, was there a show or two or three that you saw that said you, oh my goodness, this is the thing I want to get into. I want to be like that. I want to become a Broadway actor. Anything in your earlier life that you saw that influenced you?
Oh, absolutely. Hands down. Les Mis. I was a kid. I went to the touring production and which saw it at the Fisher Theater in Detroit. And I just sat in my nose was bleeding the whole time. I was way up in the back, and I sat there and I was just like hooked. I was, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to do that someday. And it was, and I think one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me was then being on tour with Mamma Mia about, geez, it must have been 20 years later, and then playing the Fisher Theater, and, and then actually, I thought, wow, I actually made my dream come true. I'm performing a Broadway show at the Fisher Theater. How about that?
That's great. My second question is actually personal because, as the rabbi knows, and a few people, I have a show that I do. It's a one-man show. And so I want to ask you, how do you get to learn and memorize your lines? Are there any tricks that you use? Anything that, because you have so many lines that you have to know and eventually internalize to be the character?
I mean, there are all kinds of tricks. Repetition is really the best thing you can do with lines, especially if they're, I find it really difficult if you've got lines that are similar. You've got one and then you've got another one, and it's kind of a similar thought and similar phrasing, but they're different. I wish I had a great example, but there was a lot of that in the commutation speech for me. At one point I had to say, if I had failed to commute Frank, I would have been guilty. And then at one point, earlier I had to say, if I failed to commute him, and I had to remember when it was that I didn't say his name. And then sometimes you can really just to kind of like get your brain flowing, there's all these kind of devices you can use, like, you can use, what do they call it, mnemonic devices, where you like think of a word that is like, what am I trying to say?
You a little helpful hint.
Like, oh, this line is ACT, it's act. I start with the word that starts with A, and then
Yeah.
the other word that I keep going up on starts with a C, and so little brain tricks like that can help you kind of remember if there are, because what I usually focus in on are the words that stump me when I'm going through it, and then I get to a thing and it just isn't coming to me. I'm like, okay, well, what can I do to help myself remember that word? Because that's what's stopping me.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And thank you for being here. You're just amazing.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy to talk to you all.
Thank you, Izzy. Gary Kaplan, I believe, had a question. Gary? No?
Gary Schreibman,
Gary Schreibman. I was told Gary.
and Earl.
Okay.
No,
Let's
no.
go to
Yes,
Gary
Gary.
Schreibman. Let us find Gary Schreibman. Gary,
Yes.
there you are. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. First a statement, then a question. The rabbi sold I knew the story, but the rabbi sold the play, and I was very disappointed because I was going to be on Broadway on August 30th. I think it closed down on August 9th.
Yes. Oh, you just
So I
missed
was,
it.
yeah, so I saw a Neil Diamond show instead.
Did you like it? Did you have a good time?
Loved it.
Oh,
Loved
good.
it. Yeah.
Good.
Anyway, the question is, a lot of out-of-towners are not Jewish. Were there any, could you get feelings if they felt as hurt as we were at what had happened back then?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, the short answer is yes. The sense I got from everyone that I talked to after the show, hands down across the board, was just, oh, this show is devastating. Just absolutely devastating.
Thank you.
Some people couldn't even talk, I mean,
The
I had
rabbi was tearing before.
I got something in my eye. That was
Oh, yeah.
one eye. It's one eye.
Yeah, I remember one young woman just saying, "I'm so sorry. I wanted to just tell you how great I thought you were, but I can't." She just like couldn't speak, but because the whole thing is just so moving, and I do think the show, it's one of those shows that sneaks up on you. It requires time to process it. And I think sometimes the time it took me to get out of costume and get out was like just enough time for it to really start hitting people. So there were very often, I mean, and I'm talking like celebrities that would come back to the back alley. They weren't actually allowed backstage, but anybody who was like a name would go into the back alley and we could like talk.
Rabbi Simon?
Yes, exactly. But I remember like Ben Stiller came and his wife, and they were both just really moved and could barely speak. And that was often the case.
Thank you.
We're just like speechless.
Mhm.
And I understand hopefully there'll be a road company.
I hope so.
Will you be part of it or not necessarily?
I don't know, Robin.
Well, I mean, you don't mind traveling, do you?
Oh no, I don't know. I
Sorry,
don't know how
Gary.
I don't know how that's gonna. I would love to travel, but it's all logistics, it's all schedule, and all it requires a lot of crazy machinations to.
Yeah.
I would have a hard time imagining that it would be the entire Broadway company on the road, because it would just be almost impossible, especially because it's so much time later. But I'll be fascinated, and I'm so excited for the idea that it is going to tour around the country. It should. I want America to see that story. It needs to,
Robin,
especially the South.
Robin, you wanted to add something about that?
Yeah, I was just going to say there's a good shot and you're hired, Sean, if it tours.
Thanks, Robin.
If I had any power, I would. We're also crossing fingers about the UK, so
Oh man, that would be amazing.
be-
I heard about that. I heard the whispers about the West End.
Maybe we can take a Beth Kodesh field trip to London.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you guys saw it, but I posted a comment for those who haven't seen the show. Lincoln Center Library recorded it. So if you can get to New York, you can actually watch it there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go to the library, right? Isn't that how it
Yeah.
works at the Lincoln Center? You have to go and watch it at the library. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a library for performing arts, and you need to have a library card, but it's free of charge. And I believe it used to be you had to make an appointment in advance. So it's probably still the same, but it's an amazing way to watch shows.
Oh, good. Thank you, Robin. Earl. Let's put Earl up here. Okay, Earl.
No,
Yeah.
I'm speaking for my wife. She has.
Okay,
the stage.
Carol.
And she's-
Thank you so much we love Broadway. We've spent several summers in Manhattan and just going to shows. So we certainly are sorry that we missed you. Please come down to South Florida because everybody will want to see you. The lines will be amazing. And thank you so much for just sharing how you as an actor get into the role. And,
Well,
every
my
night,
pleasure.
how it just is so moving, and I don't know how you do it. We're just in awe. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. It's my pleasure. I was so happy when Rabbi Michael asked me to talk to you, and I, like I said, I love talking about this man and this show because I have a very there's a very special place in my heart for him and for the piece. So thanks for and I love to talk. So
Like,
Unscripted too. Liz, who's not on camera, wanted to know what your next project is.
oh well,
You were telling me about that movie.
yes, okay. So there is I have a film, an independent film that I shot last year. It's called Intermedium, and it is premiering at the Soho Film Festival actually on Sunday. So I'm going to be going to the premiere of that. It's a really sweet little movie. We had a little preview as just the cast and crew about, it was during the run-up parade. It was about 2 months ago, maybe a month. And it's a really sweet little movie, and I have a really fun role in it. And I mean, I'm the dad, so of course I'm the dad. I'm either the dad or a lawyer or a governor. So that's
You could be all three, you know.
I know. I mean, I know it was weird that Slayton wasn't a dad because then I would have been all three. But it's a really sweet movie, and I'm excited to see it with an audience, a full audience of people who don't know it and didn't work on it. And then we're, right now I think it's just going to be like film festival circuits, and then at some point it will probably be available on some kind of streaming platform.
Very, very nice.
And then the next thing after that is I did a voice for a Netflix animated series that's going to be coming out in 2024. So that'll be fun.
Good. Anybody else have a question?
Harriet Gardy, Rabbi.
Harriet Gordy.
Rabbi, me too.
Harriet, you can start talking while I pull you up. There you go. You're muted. Harriet, you're muted.
I would love for it.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Yeah, I would love for it to come to Kravis. I go to Kravis all the time, and I would be anxious to see the show. And I am going to see, you mentioned Jagged Little Pill.
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
a good show?
It's a great show.
It's coming to Kravis this year.
Oh, it is. Wait. Kravis.
That's West Palm Beach.
Oh, yeah, I played that. That's right. With Mamma Mia.
Right.
And I think Thoroughly Modern Millie. I think I also was there with Thoroughly Modern Millie like 20 years ago.
I don't know. It's coming in February. I'd love to see you.
Well, I won't be with Jagged Little Pill, but if you go, I hope you enjoy the show. That was a very special one to me.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you,
Harriet.
and thank you for your time.
Thank
Rabbi,
you.
Yes, Rhonda.
I want to know, hello, Sean,
Hi.
Allan,
Oh,
Krill.
Hello.
I'm so glad the rabbi met you. I'm so glad. I want to ask you, why was it a limited play, a limited showing on Broadway? Why didn't
Well-
they play until people
Forever.
stopped going?
I know, well, we could have, and it was I think it was just all about schedules. I don't really know, to be honest.
Your schedule? Your schedule?
I think actor schedules. Ben Platt, I think, is a very busy guy, and I think there were several people that just had to move on, and so there was like a space of time, and I I'm going to be honest, it wouldn't have been an easy play to run for a very long time. I think there was something about the fact that it was 6 months, that it was this beautiful little gem of a run, and that we never had time to get to the point where we were tired of it or jaded about it, or just sort of going in and like, oh, whatever, I'm just going to do this, I have, this is like, it was always special, and it was always important that we were doing it. And it's I've done a lot of long runs. I did Mamma Mia for about 3.5 years. I did a show called Forever Plaid for about 3.5 years, and even a year run, like I did the national tour of Third of the Modern Millie, as I mentioned, and that was a year. And it's a very special skill to figure out how to continue to enjoy doing something, the same thing over and over again, 8 shows a week for a year, or for 2 years, or for 3 years. So I'm, as much as I miss the show and I miss the people, there's something very special about the fact that it was it's like when the British do their series, right? They just say this is the one season, that's all you get, this is it, it's finished after this. And then you go, oh, well, that was very special, there was just the one season. And so that's sort of how it feels.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Anybody else going once? Andrea?
Just for those who don't,
Yes, Izzy. Who
Oh,
muted him? Izzy mutes himself. He has a habit of muting himself.
for those who don't know or don't have access to chat because they're not trying to do it, Fern, who looks like she actually knows what she's talking about, says Rhonda had a good question, which is always questionable, but Ben Platt only had 6 months to give us. It was definitely about scheduling. So thank you, Fern, I think, for that. I wonder, Sean, because I remember when I saw something like Equus and some of the other ones where those roles are so demanding, how people can just continue to do it day
Being a rabbi.
after day. Yeah, or being a rabbi. I'm muting myself.
There is definitely it's a question we got a lot in talkbacks. It was, like, how do you do something so difficult over and over and over again? And there's a I mean, now we've named it in the last few years. There's sort of a psychological trick called de-rolling that a lot of actors use, and I've been using it for, I don't know, 10, 20 years now. But like, we're just, when you have to play someone who is, a lot of the guys in the company of Parade had to do some really horrible things and say some horrible things. And it's we had a sensitivity instructor for the show, or director, who pointed out that as difficult as it is to be an actor and play the people that are horrible things are done to, it's also difficult for the human beings, the actors, who have to be the ones doing the horrible things, because we're all pretending. And it's weird because like, physiologically, you don't really know the difference. Like, your body doesn't know the difference. All of those feelings and all of those fluids start moving that would happen if you were really doing that. And so you're filled with all of this junk and bile at the end of the show, and it's all about sort of figuring out how do I get rid of that. And so now they call it de-rolling, and I would always attach it to a physical action, and I would turn off my light to my room, and I would think to myself, I did a good job tonight, way to go, Sean, and I'm leaving it here, click. And that was my way of sort of reminding myself that I am not John Slayton, I am Sean Allan Krill. And it seems so silly, but it is amazing how much it can stick with you if you don't really realize it. And also the sort of cumulative aspect of doing something very difficult for a long period of time can really wear on you.
Andrea, last question.
Hi, so as you can tell, I'm his wife. We saw the show, the first show after you won the Tony. And we
Oh, you
just felt
did?
like yeah, we felt it was real. And that was, we got the tickets in January when we knew it
Wow.
was coming up. So it was just perfect. I mean, it just felt very special. All the, the applause and all the rest.
That was an exciting night. It really was.
It really was. We actually wanted to come up. We were going to fly up just for the day to see the closing show. And then our son had a baby. So sorry, the baby went out.
Oh,
But
that makes sense.
It's a 4-hour drive. So we
I'll
listened
accept
to
it.
the show, listened to the show on loop, just listening to it. We have a guy as well. Our grandson is Guy. And you were talking about a lawyer and a dad. Well, he's a lawyer, a dad, and rabbi. He used to be a lawyer. So
Yes.
I was just curious. I mean, he brought up Harry also. I wanted to know if it helped having Harry around to de-roll, or what it felt like when he did your role.
It was absolutely great to have him around because often you have to kind of come home and explain the situation.
I got so moved by your story, I forgot to put it up.
Oh, that's sweet. That's on our balcony in New York. By the way, we just bought a house. So that's where I am now. I'm at our house in the Catskills, which is just the
People
dreamiest.
have been to the Catskills, I'm telling you.
It was wonderful to have him around because often you have to kind of come home and say like, okay, so there's this person plays this role, and I didn't have to explain anything to him. He was there as a part of the company, and the great thing is that he made his Broadway debut very early with almost no rehearsal because it was I think it was still during previews. One of the guys got sick that he covered, and Harry went on. I don't even know. It was like 2 days before we even opened. And that was very exciting because I was there. And you saw the show. So, we were sitting on stage watching, and it was just so great because I was like, here I am watching my husband make his Broadway debut. Like there he is, like singing on Broadway. This is so cool. It wasn't even just that I was in the audience. I was actually in, it was very cool to have it be in that capacity and to get to share that with him in such a special way. But as far as him playing Slayton, I have no idea because I was never there. So
Very true. You got me on that one.
yeah.
But it was a fantastic show. And as I
everyone said he was wonderful.
Okay.
we love listening to it all the time.
Constantly. It's funny because again, you said despite the subject matter, there's so much more to the story, and the music, even without knowing the whole story, we're constantly listening to it over and over again. So first,
it's a good cast album. We were very proud of it when it came out. I was blown away.
And
the other thing that you need to know is that everybody, because of the concept of Michael's conceit of the show, most of the cast, including like Howard McGillen and me and Paul and everybody, all of the principals, except for maybe Ben and Michaela, everyone in the show is singing on those big tracks. So all those group numbers is everyone. And the swings even came in for about 4 of them, which was
I was a camp counselor many years ago, and I was the director of music and dramatics. And one of the campers, I directed Annie. She was Annie. And she was really into it. So she went to French Woods for a few summers, and she was in the same group as Jason Robert Brown, and they're still friendly.
Wow.
Because I thought it looks like it's like I went to see the show. It's this whole connection. It's okay. So
That's
thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time
you.
and joining us here at Temple Beth Dakota, sharing Leo Frank's story, your story as well. It's Harry's story. As I said, now I have to rewrite my sermons. It's
My pleasure.
we
It's been a
appreciate it.
pleasure.
And just a couple of things to last points. One is on Rosh Hashanah we say Hayom Harat Olam. This is the beginning of the world, and part of the way we look at it, it's up to us to make it a beginning. And understanding what Leo Frank went through, this whole story, and again all the anti-Semitism, the racism, the bigotry that still exists. It's up to us to make it a new world, and that's one of the lessons that we have coming through to the new year. And the other thing is a little more personal. And I think Gary Schreiber made a comment is, how do I find you? And, I went backstage, all that. And I've done that, a couple of other shows that we've seen to wait online and get autographs. And I've told Ruth, same thing, that Broadway actors are just the nicest, kindest people. I don't really know you. I met after we saw Leopoldstadt, I met another actor, Aaron Neal. I don't know if you know who he is.
I don't know him,
He's
but
very famous. He was in the show, and I write to them, and I'm their best friend. Julie Benko, who took over the role in Funny Girl, she's amazing, And I just, so thank you so much for being who you are, what you brought to the stage, the role, teaching us about the story and sharing your story with us as well. And okay, that's who that was. Very good. So if there's anybody else,
Rabbi,
very good. Nice. Yes,
Rabbi, I just want to say thank you to you for making this happen. You are so amazing, and we so appreciate you bringing us all these wonderful people. And Sean, Allan, Krill, you may have been the best one we've ever had. So we're so thrilled.
Well, thanks.
But Rabbi, you make this happen. And we love you, Rabbi, for doing that for us.
And you know what else, Sean? We
Yes,
all live in Palm Beach and Boynton Beach pretty much. Come on down. You could stay at any one of our houses,
Oh, well, thank you very much.
especially Izzy's.
Yeah. You and Harry are invited. Just take the dog home with you.
Thank you.
And
I
you're right,
appreciate it.
Izzy. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
And my pleasure. Again, I hope everybody has a good evening. Happy New Year. Guess I'll be seeing a lot of you soon for a long time. So rest up and have a good night. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good night.
And
Good night,
thank you
everyone.
very much.
Bye.
Be in touch. I'll be in touch with you.
All right, great.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Let's
What a